I heard the judge say my company's name before I even looked up. It was the way his tone softened, like he recognized it from somewhere warm, somewhere familiar, that made my stomach flip. I had walked into that courtroom expecting humiliation, maybe even the end of my business. After all, my own family had dragged me here, forcing me into bankruptcy proceedings they claimed were for my own good. But when Judge Ramirez cleared his throat and repeated, "Monica Carter, founder of Bright Step Therapeutics?" that was the moment I knew something had just shifted. I just didn't know how much yet. If this moment already has you hooked, go ahead and hit the like button. It helps the story reach more people who've lived through family betrayal. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Because mine starts long before that courtroom. And far before the day my family tried to take everything from me. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, in one of those families that looked perfect in photos. Matching pajamas on Christmas morning. Cookouts every 4th of July. Smiles that could have been on postcards. But behind the camera? There were rules, unspoken but iron sharp. My father, Raymond, believed success was measurable. Tangible. If it didn't come with a salary number he could brag about or a title people recognized, then it didn't count. My mother, Carol, was the quiet enforcer. She didn't raise her voice, she raised her eyebrows. And somehow that was worse. Then there was my older brother, Ethan, the golden child. The sun rose for him. It set for him. And if I ever got in the way of that light, well, let's just say the shadows could be cold. I tried so hard to be the good daughter. The quiet achiever. The one who didn't make waves. But sometimes waves rise whether you want them to or not. And the first one hit the moment I decided not to take the job my father demanded. After college, my dad had a job lined up for me at his friend's insurance company. Stable. Predictable. Boring. But I had been working on something of my own during senior year. A small startup focused on affordable physical therapy tools. It was niche, but I believed in it. I'd seen too many people skip therapy because they couldn't afford continued sessions. So when I told my father, "I'm starting my own company," he didn't just frown. He laughed. Quietly. In that cutting way that still hits me when I'm tired. He leaned back at the dinner table, tapping his fork on his plate. "Monica, you are not built for the business world. Leave that to people who understand it." My brother smirked. My mother pretended to be busy with her water glass. It was one of those private humiliation scenes you never forget. The kind that makes your cheeks burn even when no one else notices. But I stood my ground. I told him I wasn't asking for money. I wasn't asking for support. Just space to try. That was the beginning of the crack. And over the next few years, that crack turned into a fault line running straight through our family. What I didn't realize then was how deep that resentment would go. And how far my father and brother were willing to go to put me back in my place. The next part of this story is where the betrayal really begins. My company, Bright Step Therapeutics, actually grew. Slowly at first. Then steadily. Then all at once. We landed a contract with a regional rehab chain. We developed a low-cost balance board that went mildly viral online. We got featured in a Carolina health magazine. I wasn't a millionaire. But I was stable. Proud. Building something real. Then one Sunday at my parents' house, while we were halfway through dinner, my father slid a white envelope across the table toward me. "I think it's time you got serious," he said, not bothering to soften the edge in his voice. The envelope held a notice of financial guardianship petition. He and my brother had filed it, claiming I was irresponsible with funds and unable to manage business debts. Basically, they were trying to take legal control of my finances. I remember whispering, "You did this behind my back?" My mother didn't look up. My brother shrugged like it was nothing. My father wiped his mouth with his napkin and delivered a line so cruel it burned its way into my memory forever. "You're better off letting men handle the real money." It was soft. Too soft. Like he thought he was doing me a favor. I didn't even finish dinner. I left my plate half full and walked out, shaking so hard I had to sit in my car for 10 minutes before I could turn the key. I had no idea yet that they were just getting started. Within weeks, the petition escalated. They argued that my business was too risky, that I owed more than I owned, that I lacked the maturity and skills to run a company. None of this was true. In fact, my business was entering its strongest quarter yet. But they were banking on one thing. If you sling enough mud, some of it sticks. Especially in court. I hired an attorney, a sharp woman named Tara, who took one look at the petition and muttered, "This has personal vendetta written all over it." But the real blow came when my father told extended family I was in serious debt. Cousins stopped calling. An aunt texted me a Bible verse about humility. Then the worst hit. Our biggest supplier paused shipments until the bankruptcy situation settled. Bankruptcy. A word I had never said out loud before that. Turns out, my father and brother had filed a separate motion to force me into involuntary bankruptcy court. I remember saying to Tara, "Can they even do that? I'm not bankrupt." She sighed. "They can try. And they're trying very, very hard." And just like that, I was pulled into a legal storm I never asked for. I felt helpless. Alone. Cornered. But the turning point was coming. And when it came, it changed everything. A week before the bankruptcy hearing, I went to my office early. The cleaning crew had left the lights on. The silence felt heavy. On my desk was a letter from the rehab chain, the one we had contracts with. They were suspending our agreement until my financial stability was clear. I sank into my chair. My hands shook. My throat tightened. My father hadn't just attacked me. He had attacked my employees. My clients. My reputation. My phone buzzed. It was Ethan. He sounded almost cheerful. "Hey sis. Look, if you want to avoid the embarrassment on Friday, Dad and I can fold Bright Step into our LLC. It'll be cleaner." Fold. Like my company was a shirt he didn't like anymore. I whispered, "You're trying to shut me down." He didn't deny it. He just said, "You'll thank us someday." For some reason, that line, that casual cruelty, hit harder than all the paperwork, all the legal threats, all the humiliation. That was the moment something inside me clicked. Like a light turning on. Or a fuse finally reaching the end. I decided I wasn't going to plead anymore. Not for approval. Not for understanding. Not for mercy. If they wanted a fight, they were about to get one. I marched into Tara's office the next morning with fire in my chest. No more fear. No more apologizing for wanting to build something of my own. "Tara," I said, "we're not just defending anymore. We're pushing back." She nodded slowly, waiting for me to continue. I told her everything. How they'd sabotaged my supplier, how they'd spread rumors of my bankruptcy, how they were trying to take over my business for my own good. She leaned back, tapping her pen. "All right. Then we make this public. We bring receipts." And we did. Emails. Contracts. Bank statements. Growth reports. Letters from therapists praising our tools. But the key piece? A partnership I'd been quietly negotiating for months. A national healthcare distributor. We weren't fully signed, not yet. But they had sent a letter of intent with something critical. Pending final legal review, Bright Step Therapeutics is approved for pilot distribution nationwide. When Tara read it, she exhaled. "This changes everything." Still, I was terrified. Because courts aren't predictable. And family? Even less so. But I was ready. Or at least, ready enough. And that was when the day of the hearing arrived. Midpoint CTAs go here naturally, so I'll add one. If you've ever had to stand up to family who underestimated you, drop a comment saying, "I rose anyway." And if the story resonates, subscribe. I've got more true-to-life tales coming. Now, let's walk into that courtroom together. The federal bankruptcy courtroom in downtown Raleigh was colder than I expected. The kind of cold that settles into your elbows and makes you feel smaller than you are. My father and brother sat across the aisle with their attorney. A man who looked like he collected people's hope as a hobby. My mother was behind them. She didn't look at me. Tara squeezed my arm. Head up, Monica. When the clerk called, "Case of Carter versus Carter," my stomach tightened so hard it hurt. But then, the judge looked at the paperwork. His brow furrowed. His eyes narrowed. And then he said my company's name. Bright Step Therapeutics. I know this. Everyone turned. He continued, "My wife used your balance board after her surgery. Excellent product." My father's head snapped up. His attorney blinked fast, clearly recalibrating. I sat frozen. The judge cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, I want to state clearly that I am familiar with this company's work. I've seen its public metrics. And I will not tolerate baseless claims." It was like someone opened a window in a sealed room. For the first time in months, I could breathe. But the real blow came next, and it didn't come from me. It came from the judge himself. The judge turned to my father and brother. "Your petition states that Ms. Carter exhibits financial irresponsibility. Yet I see no debts exceeding assets. No missed payments. No irregularities." Their attorney tried to argue. "Your Honor, we have reason to believe." The judge raised a hand. "Belief is not evidence." Then he turned to me. "Ms. Carter, do you have documentation supporting your company's solvency?" Tara slid a binder forward like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. The judge flipped through it. Revenue charts, supplier emails, the letter of intent from the national distributor. He whistled softly. "These numbers are strong. Very strong." My father's face turned the color of week-old oatmeal. Then came the moment I will never forget for as long as I live. The judge leaned back, looked straight at me and said, "You're being railroaded." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. He continued, "This petition appears malicious, vindictive, an abuse of the legal system for personal control." My brother murmured, "That's not." The judge silenced him with a look. Then he spoke the words that restored everything. "Petition dismissed with prejudice." With prejudice. Meaning they could never file it again. I felt tears burn my eyes, not from sadness, but from the release of months of pressure. But then, the judge wasn't done. He leaned forward, voice steady and firm. "Ms. Carter, you may wish to pursue damages for the harm caused to your business. I strongly recommend consulting counsel regarding defamation and interference." My father stiffened. My mother finally looked at me, her expression unreadable. And just like that, the power shifted completely. News traveled fast. My father and brother weren't the only ones stunned. The rehab chain reinstated our contract within days. The supplier apologized. The national distributor finalized our agreement 2 weeks later. Bright Step exploded after that. Not overnight, but steadily, surely, confidently. People love an underdog story. Even more when it's built on truth. My father tried calling once. I didn't pick up. Ethan emailed a short message, "Let's move past this." I closed it without replying. My mother wrote a handwritten letter, saying she never meant for it to go so far. But the thing about silence is, it's a choice. And she'd chosen it too many times. Distance became my peace. Success became my voice. Healing became my quiet revenge. A year later, I saw my parents at a community event. They approached cautiously, like I might still be that girl who backed down at the dinner table. I wasn't. My father said, "We were trying to protect you." I answered softly, "No. You were trying to control me." He looked away. My mother whispered, "We miss you." I nodded but didn't step closer. I wish things had been different. And that was it. No screaming. No dramatic exit. Just the quiet truth. Sometimes justice is a courtroom victory. Sometimes justice is a boundary. Sometimes justice is simply not going back. Looking back, I don't feel anger the way I used to. I feel clarity. Family can love you and still fail you. People can claim to protect you while actually protecting their pride. And sometimes the person you need to stand up to is the one who raised you. If you're listening to this and you've lived through something similar, here's what I learned. They don't get to write your story unless you hand them the pen. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story hit home, subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments what part resonated with you most. Your support keeps these stories alive. And remember, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just says, "No more."